Alex Radical from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Royal Hospital from Lost Games. Royal Hospital is a 2 to 4 player tableau building game that takes place across 6 rounds, and this, by the way, is a prototype. All rules and components subject to change. I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below, and please note that while this video is not sponsored, we are doing sponsored content around the game, so please take that into account and any potential biases it creates. Royal Hospital is a 2 to 4 player tableau building game. The general idea of the game is across 6 rounds of play, you're going to be taking patients into your little hospital over here. You're going to be using the various cards over here to build up your tableau, advancing on all the various tracks where you see all these fun little markers over here to generate the more resources every round, to advance more on tracks, to cascade moving up on other tracks, and ultimately to get as many points as possible while trying to ensure you heal the patients as you go along, because bad patients or dead patients are bad for business because no one really trusts your hospital anymore. So be a good doctor. Be a good doctor as you play through the game. In each round, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and look at the round track over here, and you're going to draw cards, both patients and tableau cards over here. So in round 0 over here, round 1, you're drawing 0 cards from these decks because you start with them before the game begins, but you will be drawing 1 patient, each one putting into the hospital. Now you'll notice we should actually be drawing from the bottom of the stack over here, drawing from the bottom of the stack, putting them on to your specific player boards. And you'll notice they require a certain amount of diagnostic resources to even see what's wrong with them. Patients over here require some sort of research, require diagnostics in order to be able to tell what's wrong with them, and once they do, then you'll know what it takes to actually heal them. Now along the way, you have a hand of cards, because on your turn what you're going to be doing is you're going to be playing your cards, trying to figure out the right combination of cards that will help you build up your tableau. You see, cards in the game are going to cost any number of resources, from money to research, different resources in the game. Sometimes you're going to be cashing in patients you've healed for clinical trials, and then these cards, they all have a card color, which is going to be very relevant for different types of cards, or cards that will let you store more patients in your hospital, cards that will trigger off of other cards, things that will give you bonuses for having every time you play a certain color of card, things like that. This is where the card color is going to come into play. But then there's going to be immediate effects, and there's going to be actionable effects each round. So for example, if I go ahead and I pay 2 research over here, research is going to be one of the 5 resources you have in the game. You're going to have money, you're going to have research, you're going to have staff. Staff is going to be a wild card for these 2 over here, which is going to be diagnostics and healing. So you have all these resources you're keeping track of, and over here you're also keeping track of the patients you've healed along the way. So a whole lot of things you're trying to be on top of as you try to generate resources. Now this card over here, if we pay 2 research, we're going to go ahead and be able to put the card into our tableau, and then as an action we can either get to play cards, or you can activate a card, and I can gain 1 ambulance, which means moving my ambulance along this track, gaining the benefits. This is where you'll notice there are a lot of tracks in the game. There is the round track up over here. There's going to be the ambulance track, which simply goes around and around in a circle, continuously giving you different benefits as you go around. We're going to have the 4 insurance tracks over here. Moving up these tracks will give you different benefits, and moving to the end of a track will give you one of these resources over here, which effectively is a complete wild resource, being able to operate instead of anything in the game. You'll notice a lot of tracks have these for getting somewhere first. So when you go through the game over here, if you get 21 money first, 21 income every round, as you move up these tracks, gaining more resources, as you move up this track over here, moving up your reputation of the hospital, all these things will give you ways to earn that wild resource for being first to a track. You're trying to balance all that with the various cards, how you're building out your engine, moving up, going ahead and paying 39 money, which is a whole lot of money, but being able to increase all of these productions by 1, which means across each of the rounds of the game, you're going to be earning more and more money. You're trying to build out your tableau, you're trying to play cards into your engine, all of them hopefully giving you more and more triggering benefits, playing off each other at times, or possibly being rewarded for playing certain types of cards as you try to balance your economy of the game. That's going to be round 1. And then you get to round 2 and you start generating resources from all the things you did in round 1, but you're also going to draw more cards. As you move to round 2, you're going to be drawing more cards. You do get to draw extra cards if you've advanced on these tracks. You still only get to keep 2, but it will give you more agency, and the agency is incredibly important because the combination of cards is going to be the thing that lets you try to get ahead more than your opponents. The combination of how you make those cards work with each other. Getting the right card for your engine is key in this game because very often your tableau is going to be interdependent. Cards are going to play off of one another very strongly in this game, and so the ability to draw more is incredibly important, and then so are the resources you're gathering. Resources in this game can be very tight those first few rounds. You're trying to rely on things that give you extra one-time effects, whether it's the hospital, whether it's the insurance tracks. Those one-time benefits will give you extra stuff you can go ahead and get early game, but as the game progresses, hopefully you've built up your income on those tracks, and you can start raking in those resources. That's going to be important because as the game progresses, you're drawing more and more patients each round. In fact, actually round 6 over here, or around 5 and 6, and be drawing more patients than you even have room for in your hospital, which means hopefully you've gone ahead and done some clinical trials or gotten some extra space in your hospital to be able to store those patients. Otherwise, you're relying on getting a patient. It requires terminal care, which, if you don't understand what that means, that there's a little coming out of left field over there, but terminal care patients, they never fully get healed, but that means they don't count against your space in your hospital, so it's another way that you can go ahead and hopefully draw more patients without taking the penalty of having to eject a patient. That's kind of the general idea of the game. Most of the game will come down to the interactions of the cards themselves. The general puzzle of the game is, in a 6-round game, you're going to be drawing patients every single round, you're going to be drawing cards every single round, you're trying to bump yourself up on income tracks to be able to manage your resources. As you diagnose patients, you'll see what they need to be healed. Look, this one needs 3 healing, at which point they'll give you 4 points. They'll bump up your track over here, so you can use them for clinical trials, and they'll go ahead and pay you 4 money because, probably the insurance company's paying, let's be honest, but someone's paying 4 money, and you can use that towards your engine. You're trying to heal patients, be mindful of the reputation of your hospital, be mindful of all the cards and the ways they're going to combine as you figure out how they all cohesively work together, and just do so better and more efficiently than your opponents across these 6 rounds of Royal Hospital. That's kind of the game. The biggest thing you're going to be missing is the sense of seeing how all the cards work together, how all the cards tableau off one another, or do one-time effects and or ongoing effects, because that's where the puzzle comes into play. And so to do that, you kind of need to play the game, or you can go ahead and check out a playthrough on this channel at some point. There'll be a playthrough in the future, alternatively content on other channels as well. From there, we're going to go ahead and dive into our review, starting off with ease of play. Ease of play on this is pretty straightforward. Game time comes in 60 to 90 minutes. Rulebook is not that complicated, a few small questions, but it is a prototype rulebook. But for the most part, I would say it's a fairly straightforward game. You're basically going through the sequence of, just the sequence of a round, and the rest of the complexity of the game is going to come through on the card interactions themselves. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, which is a tableau building game, meaning inherently there's a degree of powers and abilities as you build out your tableau, as you find the right way for cards to combine. Finding the right combination is where the game thrives. Finding an aspect of, oh, I'm going to go ahead and get this thing, and this thing is going to reward me when I play yellow cards, and look, I played these yellow cards, and that's going to give me an ongoing repeatable effect each round, because I'm going to go ahead and activate this ambulance every round. But look, I got a thing that says whenever I activate the ambulance, I also get a money, and so now I'm not just doing that, but I'm finding the combinations that all work together. The idea of building out a tableau and getting stronger and stronger across the 6 rounds of play, that's going to be the rewarding aspect of this game, and replaying it to see the different combinations of the ways you can try to work with that tableau. Because there are a lot of tracks to be mindful in this game. There's going to be reputation, which will give you points at every round. There's going to be the ambulance, which just continuously cycles, giving you different benefits. There's going to be the insurance, giving you points as you work your way towards the end of the track. It's also worth noting, on all tracks in the game, you're going to score points at the end of the game for how many opponents you are ahead of on those tracks, so it's yet another incentive to go up on these tracks. Everything in the game is going to give you stuff, and it's just about trying to figure out the right way to get things, or the right bonuses to drive towards. Speaking of endgame bonuses, there's also those in-game bonuses. Moving up tracks will give you different wild resources, and these resources are incredibly key, because like I said, everything in this game starts off very tight. You will start getting more and more powerful as you hit that turn 5 and 6, but the first few rounds, you're always going to be scavenging to get every single last resource you can get your hands on, because you need to heal patients. There's a timing element at play, a timing element you haven't really seen here, but if you go through a bunch of patients, you'll see some of these patients. We have terminal patients, we have patients who will die if you don't treat them. This patient only has 2 rounds to live, and then the kicker is they are still accumulating time cubes even when you don't even know what the problem is. Until you diagnose them, sometimes they're slowly accumulating cubes and will slowly die before you ever had a chance to see what the problem was, which is both a thematically nice element, but also a pressure on the game, a pressure on you to figure out what you're trying to do this round. Do you want that one extra card that's going to help your tableau spin a little faster, or do you actually want to go ahead and fix the patients in front of you? Because if you don't, next round you're going to be drawing more patients than your hospital has room for. Those decisions are going to be at play as you play through Royal Hospital. Now, as far as what I don't like in the game, first of all, as a tableau building game, as a game where you're constantly trying to figure out what you can add to your engine to get more out of it, this is a fixed round game. You have 6 rounds of play as opposed to a player deterministic endgame, and for me personally, when I'm building out a tableau, I always prefer a player determined endgame as opposed to a consistent fixed number of rounds, primarily because I don't like the mathing out how much benefit you're going to get from a card removes some of the fun of playing cards. If I'm going to sit down and play a card and I'm like, oh, this card's probably worth, 10 money for me because there's only 2 rounds left in the game, and the card costs me 12 money to play, I'm not going to play it. Versus when there's a player deterministic endgame, when you don't know exactly how many turns are left, the math of trying to figure out, well, there's 2 or 3 or 4 turns left, maybe it'll be worth it, maybe it'll be not, it means you can't fully slowly number crunch the value of any given card, and I prefer that. It leaves a bit more fun in still playing things as you enter those final rounds, versus because this is a 6-round game, as I get to round 4 even, well, for sure 5 and 6, but even 4, I'm starting to really think through, is this card worth it, or is it overpriced, given where we are in the game. So in general, with tableau building games, I prefer player-determined ending as opposed to a fixed number of rounds. I'll also say that many cards can feel way too expensive, especially early game, in order to try to build out your engine. Sometimes you just feel you have some really cool cards, but by the time you get to play them, it's going to be round 3, and then at that point, we start getting into that mathingness aspect where, is this even worth it anymore? Or alternatively, you can spend every single thing you're trying to do for the first 2 rounds towards playing those cards. And sometimes they're worth it, but in a game that's only 6 rounds, if you really spend the entire first 2 rounds working your way to a 40 cost card, which can happen, that moment, even though the math of the game itself works out, those moments are just a little less fun. It just feels like you want to get more done in those first few rounds. And then lastly, the kicker on all of this is that when you play this game, and again, I would say it's game dependent how well your combos work out in the game. I've had games of Royal Hospital where I really managed to build out an engine and feel like I cohesively got something working together. These cards played off of that card, those cards gave me extra bonuses, I moved up those tracks because of that. Sometimes when I play this game, I do get that cohesive engine feeling, but other times, because of the limited card draw and because of the way you're trying to build out your engine may not be able to do so until you're a few rounds into the game, there have also been games where I just didn't see as much cohesion in the engine that I built, and there wasn't enough that I could do about it because there's a lot of cards, you're not necessarily always drawing as many cards as you would like. This is one of those times where I almost wish there were a draft in the game, but a draft would slow down the game, and also the current way the game is structured, because of the different card draw you get in the game, I don't know if it really works in the current engine, but it would let you see more of the cards and possibly be able to build around that engine. Whereas again, some games I just didn't feel that engine come together. As far as I can see others not liking, first of all, the randomness of drawing patients. When you draw patients in the game, you'll get anything from someone that costs 3, you'll get terminally ill patients, you'll get critical patients, you'll get a patient that dies after 2 rounds versus somebody else will get a patient that stays alive the whole time, and you don't really know what you're getting. There's definitely a degree of randomness to the patient draw, and that randomness can hit other people in different ways, meaning the way you've built out your board and what you get hit with, it can basically result in one patient having an easier patient draw than another just through sheer luck of the draw. I'll say that the lack of identity on resources can be a bit off-putting is the wrong word, but it takes a little less meaning from the resources. In the game, you basically have these resources, which are the diagnostics and the health. You have the staff, which works as either of those, so this is a wild for those, and this is a wild for everything, which means you kind of have 4 resources, or technically even 5 resources, but when it actually plays out, it doesn't really feel that way. It feels like there's a little bit of blurring the lines between the resources, which is not bad, but also, I would say overall, it just loses a little bit of identity there. And then lastly, I'll say that the end game track points are easy to forget. Consistently, whenever I play this game, even though I teach people, although I will say now I'm at the point where I know to reinforce it throughout the game, but even though I'll teach people, like, hey, at the end of the game, you're going to get points for being higher on tracks, I do find that's one of those things where it is so easy to forget that one aspect. The other rules, not so much. For whatever reason, it all works, but those extra points you're going to get at the end of the game for being higher than other players on tracks, every time I've taught this game, by the time you get to the end of it, players forget that aspect, which means, again, now I'm able to reinforce that, and, as we get, a few rounds into the game, at the end of round 2, I'm like, don't forget, this will happen, and now that you've started to do the other things, it can stick a little better, but it is one of those things, it's just easy to forget as you're playing through it. As far as final thoughts on Royal Hospital, overall, Royal Hospital is a solid tableau building game that doesn't outstay its welcome, 60 to 90 minutes, not overly long, gives you not necessarily a unique theme, but not an overdone theme as far as the medical aspect and trying to heal everyone and trying to deal with patients. It manages the patients coming in nicely, both thematically and mechanically, while giving you all these tracks to work towards and ways to work your way up those tracks and build a cohesive engine at times. The fact that it is a fixed number of rounds and the fact that the engine doesn't come together as cohesively as I would like, as consistently as I would like, does mean that this one is a little bit lower for me. I'd put it at a 3.5 out of 5. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, I'd mention Healthy Heart Hospital. If you're looking for another hospital-themed game, this one focused more on solo play and bag building. A Healthy Heart Hospital will let you build up your tableau while trying to not lose that many patients, but you will lose some patients. And if you're looking for a tableau building game that definitely seems to share some DNA with Royal Hospital over here, check out Terraforming Mars, which does a lot of the similar, the track machinations and all that, while working on your tableau. I think Terraforming Mars is definitely one worth checking out. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.